Hunter, your brother Shinaki here, Mackay of Carrickbraith. Today I am sending you a report from Sicily, but from the slopes of Mount Etna. So I'm partway up Mount Etna right now, the famous volcano in the Mediterranean. You can see the peak just up behind me there. So this is another bit of a mystery episode for you, Hunter. What is the Mackay connection to Mount Etna? Well, this time it's wrapped up in mythology. Arguably, the Mackays originate here. Now, you're going to be shocked, Hunter. You're going to say, you can't seriously, Chris, be suggesting that the Mackays originally are Sicilian somehow. Well, not quite. But Mount Etna, in Roman and Greek myth, was the home and workshop of Vulcan, which is where we get the word volcano, whereas the Greeks knew him Hephaestus. That was the god of fire and of smithcraft, working on an anvil below the surface of Mount Etna, along with his three Cyclops assistants. He would forge all these wonderful and magical weapons for the gods and heroes. And in fact, when the volcano erupts, it's said that that is Hephaestus working on his latest project. So what's the connection with the Mackays? Well, in myth, the name Mackay, son of fire, it's argued that it really means sons or descendants of the god of fire, which for the Greeks and Romans is Hephaestus and Vulcan. But of course, the Mackays weren't from this part of the world. So what's the connection with Hephaestus? Well, in times before the monotheistic religions we know today, such as Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, in times before then, when they were polytheistic religions, many of them were syncretic, in that if you had someone from another part of the world travel to a different part of the world and encounter tales or myths of some of the gods there, that person would automatically try to establish links between his own myths and the myths in the new part of the world he was visiting. So for the ancient Greeks, for example, when they would go to Rome, or Romans would visit Greece, and the Greeks would talk about Hephaestus, their god of fire, the Romans' response wouldn't be, well, no, that god doesn't exist, only our god, Vulcan, exists. Their response rather was to say, oh yeah, Hephaestus, he sounds like our god of fire, Vulcan. And so similarly, when the Romans would go through Gaul or up into Gaelic Scotland, you might have had a similar response for Gaels or Celts there, discussing their own god of fire, Aodh. And the Romans might have responded by saying, well, that's akin to our god Vulcan. They would see it as the same god in myth. And so arguably, this would be the home of the progenitor of the Mackays, that the originator of the Mackays would be living and working up in here. That's the myth at any rate. And indeed, there are other tribes, both in Celtic Ireland and Celtic Gaul, who claimed this god of fire as their progenitor. The Aodh in Gaul, for example, they bear the same root as the Aodh in Mackay. So, in a sense, I've come home for a visit here, Hunter.